this conversation makes me feel vulnerable because I just don't know what the heck I'm going to share. And obviously this could be edited out, obviously, but hey loves. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Marquise, and today's episode I'm going to be talking about how I choose to protect my peace and energy in my singleness. Okay, I'm going to admit that having this conversation online makes me feel very vulnerable. It's easy for me to have this conversation with friends and family, but to do it online is a completely different space. But here I am. I just think that it's important to have more of these conversations available for us to connect with one another, as well as be able to learn some things from one another of how to better, I want to say, just exist better. I've really gotten great joy, and I've been able to gain a better understanding of some of the things that I desire, as well as just not feel so alone in some aspects when I listen to other people share their stories. So this is me sharing my story, and I hope that you all can either connect with it or learn something from it, or if you find something in this video that resonates with you, please share it in the comments. I would love to know, as well as anything that you might do in your singleness that you have found to be very helpful for you. Please share that in the comments as well, so that we can all learn from one another. We're not alone. We're not alone in this journey, and I just want this to be a space where we can share and grow and learn from one another. All right, let's do it. The first thing that I have found to be insurmountably helpful is therapy. I was in a relationship, and I'm not sure, okay, let's rewind. I mentioned in my video, I think it was the discoloration video, and the topics are completely unrelated, but I was just mentioning in the video that the year 2021 was a rough year for me, and that wasn't just trying to still work through what we had all experienced in 2020, but in addition to that, it was also about my relational dynamics, as well as ending a relationship at the beginning of 2021. And that relationship really rocked me. In hindsight, it was more about my ego being bruised ultimately. And it's actually not even ultimately. It was more about my ego being bruised and me becoming aware of it. In addition to that, also recognizing how my traumas that I was unaware of, how they were playing a factor in the people that I was choosing to engage with and call partners and boyfriends or someone that I like. When that relationship ended in 2021, and it really ended because we got into it and he said something that just was, I had to put up a boundary. Like, no, there's no shot that you can say that to me and I'm gonna continue to date you and call you my boyfriend. There just isn't, especially because the relationship while we were in it already felt, it didn't feel, I was not at ease when I was in that relationship. There were plenty of times where I would just be in like an intimate setting with this person, and I was just trying to feel like I was just trying to make it work. And there was no sense of peace that I had at all while I was in that relationship. And when it ended, I felt even worse because I already knew that I was in a relationship that wasn't good for me. And then this person said something to me that was offensive. That was the catalyst for the relationship ending. And once it ended, I was just shaken. I became extremely obsessive about that relationship, and knowing that it wasn't a good fit for me, but I was still just trying to comb through the pieces that I had left over in my memory, just trying to figure out like how I could have done better. Like, what could I have done to show up and be a better version of myself in that relationship? And the truth is, like, there was nothing else that I could have done. And thankfully, after that relationship, that was ended like in the first quarter of 2021, I did get into therapy, and I started actually using BetterHelp. And this is not an ad for BetterHelp, but I really appreciated how easy their service makes it to connect with a counselor and to get started. Because at that time, I just, guys, I was rocked. I was not at my best at all, and I needed help. And even before I got into that relationship, the beginning of 2020, prior to 2020, I knew that I needed to talk to a therapist just because I felt disturbed and I just couldn't quite figure out why. And then the beginning of 2020, I actually ended up working with a therapist, and then everything happened. Everything shut down in 2020, and I no longer worked with that therapist. So I already went into the relationship that I'm talking about feeling disturbed and not particularly conscious of it all the time. Then I'm in the relationship and feeling disturbed, and now the end of the relationship ends in a way that just added more fuel to my disturbance, added more fuel to the fire that I needed to extinguish. I was shaken. Thankfully, I was able to talk with someone at BetterHelp and start breaking some ground that I had cemented, not even knowing that it was cemented from the trauma that I had. And I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity to work with someone to start kind of putting some pieces together. I ended that service, and a friend of mine was actually working with a therapist, and she referred me to that therapist. So then I switched over to the other therapist, who I now call Dr. P. Dr. P, if you're watching this, thank you. So I've been working with my current therapist for a little over a year now, and it's been a complete mental transformation, really, just in the way that I am able to better assess some of the decisions that I have made and or am making. And I'm very grateful to be able to feel like I have more of a clear mind in order to date. And not even just to date, to be, to exist, to live with myself and in myself fully, and not feel the turmoil that I felt prior to getting into therapy. And so now working with Dr. P, she's been able to help me put together some pieces. And just from the stories that I've shared with her from my childhood experiences and or my dating experiences, it's been very helpful to have someone say, oh, well, based on the story that you told me in your childhood at this time, that connects to some decisions that you've made here, especially in relationships. And thinking about it now just makes me just a little emotional, because I think I would have kept making the same mistakes that I was making prior to, had I not gotten into therapy and been able to identify some of my roadblocks that I kept running into, and not even aware that I was the one that that the baggage that I was carrying was just too heavy for me to even go around the block or jump the block, you know? So, therapy has been number one in my singleness now, to be able to just feel better about myself, and to be able to talk with someone. And I work with Dr. P every week, and to be able to talk with her, just to go through different things. And as the weeks go by, like, something will happen. And as I've talked to other people, like other guys, she also feels like an accountability, but I'm gonna try to say that again. She also feels like an accountability partner. I know she's a doctor, and I know that she's more than that, but in my brain, in my mind, she kind of feels like an accountability partner, because there have been people that I've talked to while I've been working with Dr. P, and she's been able to she's been able to help me manage more effectively and in my dating experience, from the relationship, let's call him Bob, the relationship that ended with Bob in 2021. I talked to some other people, and it's been a blessing, really. It's been a blessing to be able to have the people that I'm talking to, and then have my sessions with Dr. P, and be like, oh, I'm feeling this way. And she's like, oh, and then she just kind of reminds me of like, oh, well, this kind of sounds like that, or this sounds like that, or it doesn't sound like this is the right fit. And me, like, also subconsciously, kind of consciously also knowing this might not be the right fit, but because of previous trauma and childhood experiences, I was just trying to like make it work. Even with Bob, when I met him, I recognized early on that I was like, oh, there are some things I see that aren't the best in this. Bob told me, like, one of the things Bob said was he wasn't empathetic. Now, at this point, if someone told me that they weren't a guy that I was interested told me that they weren't empathetic, I'd be like, oh, I'm okay, thank you so much. Like, no, I don't, that doesn't work for me. That might work for somebody else, but for me, that doesn't work. I'm a very empathetic person, and there are times where I can have more empathy for sure. But for the most part, I'm a pretty empathetic person. So at that time, I kind of took on that idea as a challenge. And I also recognized, because of therapy, that I was engaging with some people with the idea that, like, I can help them. I can help fix them. I can help heal them. And because of therapy, I now know that is not my responsibility. Trying to carry my bags and someone else's bags, honey, who's doing that? Why? We don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I don't know about y'all, but I don't have time for that. That's too heavy. Especially when you're carrying bags and dragging bags behind you that you aren't even aware of. And that was my situation. I was aware I had some bags, because we're humans, and we all have had trauma and experiences, and have been triggered by our trauma. So I knew that I was like carrying some stuff around, but then because I was in my sessions with my counselor my counselor and BetterHelp, and then Dr. P, I realized, oh, I've got a whole freaking wagon that's strapped to my belt loop, and I'm just like, oh, oh. Oh my gosh. Oh, bless that version of me. And again, I feel emotional in talking about it, because my God, I was just trying. And so now in my singleness, guys, when I tell you that I'm like actually excited to be single, I have never been excited to be single. It has been, maybe there have been like bits of excitement when I end a relationship, And I have felt that sense of like, I'm out of the relationship. Next, on to the next person. Oh, I can now I'm available to talk to like whoever comes around. And even that concept. Oh, now I'm available to talk to whoever comes around. Whoever comes around? No, I am not available for whoever comes around. I am available. Guys, there's another butterfly. If you saw my other video, get to know me video, butterflies butterflies pull at my heartstrings. I'm going to stay focused. And this one was an orange butterfly also. If you've seen my get to know me video, if you haven't seen it, watch it. Then you'll have some perspective as to why I'm so excited about butterflies, kind of. But if not, it's all right. I'm just, butterflies excite me these days. It makes me feel like God is just sending me a message of like, you're on the right track. And it's an orange butterfly. Anyway, let's get back to it. But no, I am not going to make myself available to anyone who is wanting to make themselves available to me. And I put that in quotes because that availability also looks different from person to person. And having the wherewithal to know that I am no longer openly available to just anyone and everyone. And let me clarify, it was not anyone and everyone, but when I tell you like
I didn't have standards.
Who said that? I didn't have standards. Because of therapy, I was able to talk out my previous experiences, connect some dots, and realize there is a through line of pick me, pick me, pick me. And knowing, no, girl, you need to pick yourself. Pick yourself. If I'm not picking myself, then I'm making myself available to anyone and everyone to pick me. No, that's not how this goes. That's not how you can, that is not how you can live in a light that is right and true to you. If I think about it too long, I will start crying right here on camera, and I'm not going to do that because I'm going to stay focused, but I really just want to cry for that version of myself, legitimately. So therapy. Like I said, I am still working with Dr. P, and at the end of 2021, I got into another relationship, which I shouldn't have gotten in. And he was a good guy. And the thing about, let's call him Max, there was a big difference between there was a big difference between Bob and Max. And Max was completely opposite from Bob. And in my lack of understanding of myself, I was thinking, oh, great. Oh my gosh, Max is not like Bob. Max is what I need. Yeah, that's it. And once the relationship with Max ended, I was able to, again, find a connecting through line, even from Bob to Max. Now, you might be asking, what happened to Dr. P? Because I thought she was your accountability partner. Basically, is what you just said, Marquise. Dr. P's job is to help me connect the dots. Dr. P's job is not to live my life for me. she was there giving me some guidance. She was there giving me guidance, giving me some insight. And all the while, and I say this also, Max is not a bad guy. Max just wasn't my guy. And I wanted Max to be my guy because he was a good guy. But also, as I spend more time with myself, and like I'll get to that after I move on from therapy, I'm staying here so long because it's been that life-changing for me. It has been a complete game changer for the way that I'm treating my singleness. I'm excited to be single because I'm like, yo, I picked myself. I'm choosing me every day, all day, and I am not making myself available to anyone and everyone. I will make myself available if this person is making themselves available to me. And if it's not the case, then I'm going to go ahead and not make myself so available. And actually, in some cases, thank you, but this is not for me. I am not going to force anything. No. We're not forcing anything else. We're not forcing anything, any other relationships. Nah, that's for the birds. No longer will I force any more relationships. It's for the birds. And forcing, that's off topic. I'm not going to get into that right now because that's off topic. This topic is how I am choosing to protect my peace and my energy in my singleness. And picking myself and not forcing anything is a part of it. It's not in my notes, but that's like a side note, a sub note. The second thing that I'm doing in my singleness is more self-care and self-love. As I am learning, and I just had a session with Dr. P this week that had me in my feelings. When I tell you I was in my feelings, because that's also on another topic. You guys just get me going where I just want to share all these stories, and we don't have time for this in this particular episode. So I'm going to have to do another episode where maybe I can just share some additional things that I've learned in therapy outside of just my romantic relational dynamics. But in this recent session with Dr. P, it's too soon for me to talk about that, actually. But I will say that she said during this session, it's self-love. You need more self-love. And I ended the session like, since I've been working with her, I have been pretty good with my self-love, I thought. And then the mirror she held up in front of my face told me otherwise. I also want to add that I'm sharing these things to share, not to say that I've got it all figured out in my singleness and in this single season of mine. No. These are just some things that I'm currently doing that help me feel better about my singleness and remind me to choose me as I am existing and working on myself, getting back to self-care and self-love. And I feel like self-care and self-love, those two things, they go hand in hand, I feel like, for me. So a part of my self-love routine that I've been doing in my singleness, in this single season, I've been working to be more intentional about the personal time that I spend with myself. I live with my pup, so I spend a lot of time by myself, which I'm cool with. I'm also an only child, so I'm straight. Like I'm used to this. Not new to this rodeo, this solo rodeo. But with the intention of love and self-love, I am now putting more focus on how do I do that effectively, and how do I do that, I'm going to say expansively. How do I incorporate a self-love routine in my singleness, all the while reminding me that I am choosing me? So I've been doing that by taking myself out on dates. And I've been trying to figure out if I want to call them like personal dates. I've been calling them like personal dates, and I think I've also called them like self-love dates. But still, taking myself out on a date. And it's like, there was one date I planned and I was very proud of myself. I also realized, dating is expensive. Like, I've known dating is expensive, but when you actually take yourself out on a date and you do it the way that you want to do it, you learn some information of like, who's out here spending all this money on these dates and y'all don't know what y'all want? We don't know what we want. And I say y'all like y'all loosely. I am included in the y'all. But depending upon the relational dynamic and who's picking up whose tab, dating is expensive. So that's like just a side note. But and it doesn't always have to be that, obviously. Like, you can take yourself to the park, which I've done plenty of times. I've taken myself to the park, gotten myself a little sandwich, made a little picnic for myself, took me and my pup, or just took myself to the park. I like to take her too, so it doesn't really, it counts. It still counts. Because you could have like a puppy play date. I'm trying to just justify me taking my dog to the park by myself for my personal date. Guys, what's going on? It doesn't always have to be expensive. There are less expensive dates, but this one date that I planned, I wined and dined myself, and it was lovely. And also, I'm discovering the more that I spend intentional time with myself and take myself out, it helps me come to a better understanding of what it is that I want, what it is that I desire in relationship. And it's not all just about dating, but there are experiences that you want to have with people. And if you're waiting to have these experiences until you meet somebody, you might be waiting for a minute. Setting up dates for yourself, I'm going to say setting up dates for yourself is the new sexy. I just have too much fun when I'm doing these things. Setting up dates for yourself, I'm going to say, is the new sexy in your singleness, and maybe even outside of your singleness. Hear me out. If you're setting up dates for yourself, you get to decide like how your evening or your day is going to go. You get to go to the restaurant or the place that you want to go to. You get to eat the food that you want to go to. And I know in a relationship, like sometimes that happens, and other times your partner wants to go somewhere else that you don't want to go to, but you go to that place because your partner wants to do it, which is all fine and dandy. But sometimes it's kind of a sacrifice. A sacrifice in a very loose term, but still a sacrifice nonetheless. It's a compromise. It's a compromise. And we're talking about food here, obviously. But it's still a compromise that you're going to go do this thing with your partner because they want to do it. And you're like, I don't really want to, but I'll do it. But when you take yourself out on a date, you get to decide where you go eat, what food you're eating, if you're sharing, because you're only sharing with yourself. I told you I'm an only child, so I'm still maturing as far as sharing food is concerned. Actually, Bob really did help me with that. Bob was someone who was like, nah, we're not doing that. I don't want to share my food thing, which is great. The beautiful thing about dating in general is that you get to learn, yes, about the other person, but you learn more about yourself. I'm just saying that so that just in case I don't say that, I've said it. Yeah, so taking yourself out, I take myself out on dates, whether it's I'm gonna wine and dine myself or I'll take myself roller skating. Or I've taken myself, like I said, to the park, or I have, you know, it's just, I've done a few things, but it's spending the intentional time with myself. And in that time, considering what makes me feel loved? What about this moment am I really enjoying? Is it the fact that I can do this thing for myself? Is it the fact that I planned this date or this day for myself? Is it the fact that I feel like I'm pouring back into me? Yes, yes, and yes, all of the above. Self-care also, reading, for me, self-care also looks like reading personal development books. I've always been very drawn to personal development books, but with the intention of the time and my, like, a healthy existence for me, being more mindful of the personal development books that I'm choosing to read. Whether that's love, books about love, and I think I did mention my favorite book is All About Love by Bell Hooks. And that just broadened my scope of what I considered love to be. Even in self-care, making sure that I have a routine that makes me feel good. Like, I have really been working on putting together a solid morning routine and a night routine. My days can kind of be all over the place sometimes, especially with what I do as an actress and creative and also freelancer. No day that looks like the previous. My days don't look the same. Sometimes they do, but for the most part, my days don't look the same. Making sure that I'm starting my day on a note that feels positive and uplifting also has made a tremendous difference in the way that I'm able to just exist in my days. And it really came from 2020 and 2021, just trying to figure out what life is on this side of the vid, COVID. It really came on this side of COVID, me just trying to get back to a routine that makes me feel good when starting my day. And this single season of my life, I am making sure I prioritize my self-care routine as well as my self-love dates and self-love time. It's just, it should be self-love all the time, really. And that, I think, fluctuates. There's variances of what that actually entails. But with self-love and self-care, to me, reminds me to prioritize myself. I think of it like if you've been on the plane and the flight attendants tell you in case of emergency and the plane is low on oxygen, the oxygen masks will drop down. Now they say, put your mask on before you put on someone else's mask. That's how I consider self-care and self-love as a whole, and just taking care of you personally. I really believe that you cannot give to someone if you can't even give to yourself. I can't help anyone put on their oxygen mask if I can't breathe myself. I'm past that. I'm done. I'm done. I can't breathe because I didn't make sure that I could breathe so that I could help you. that's how I view, especially now, that is how I am viewing self-love and self-care. I'm putting on my oxygen mask so that I can be a more effective and loving person, period. That's what I want to do, right? I don't want to just be good for myself. Yes, I want to be good for myself, but I don't want to just be good for myself. And I don't want to just be good for my future romantic partner. I want to be good for society as a whole. And I think that really comes from, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it really comes from me making sure that I'm good and I'm doing all that I can to positively feed and nurture and nourish myself so that I then can give to other people from a more healed space. If I got my baggage and luggage and I don't care about me, I sure as heck can't care about the next person. Legit, I cannot care. I can't. It just doesn't work that way. Try dating someone who doesn't love themselves. I've done it. Good luck. Good luck, honey. It's tough. Because you're just, you're just trying to, and I say you generically, but this was my experience. I was just trying to pour all of the love that I had and could freaking find to get this person to love me back. And they didn't love me back because they didn't even really love themselves. I'm on one today. Whoops. I laugh through this, but when I put that piece together for especially Bob, man, it was like an anchor was dropped into the ocean and I was on a lifeboat, like one of those floating rafts with this heavy anchor. It was because it finally gave me perspective as to what I was feeling. I could finally put into words all of the questions that I had while I was dating Bob. I would be laying in Bob's room and I'd be like, I don't know. Is this it? I don't know. When do you know if you should throw the fish back in the sea? When you have to ask that question, the amount of times I ask myself that question, when do you know if you should throw the fish back in the sea? You should probably throw the fish back in the sea. Plenty of fish. Throw that fish back. It's okay. It doesn't have to be your fish. It's okay. I went off on a tangent, but because that's how impactful that relationship was for me making forward movement in my personal development the way that I needed to, and to be able to be on this side of my singleness again and be like, oh, I'm good. I'm chilling until. Moving on. The third thing that I am finding helpful is to get clear on what I need and what I desire. And that goes back to, I think, it goes back to the other two things that I've mentioned, / three things that I've mentioned: therapy, self-care, self-love, hence the 3. Because the more I spend time with myself and understanding my traumas, the better I can make more effective decisions when choosing to engage with someone and calling them my partner. I was recently talking to this guy who I actually was talking to briefly in 2021 in between Bob and Max. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like there's a little bit of history there. I'm attracted to him. I'm physically attracted to him. I'm not gonna lie, like it really did. It gave me a little bump of ego, the fact that it had been a year and he was like, hey, I didn't like the way our dynamic ended, so how you doing? Because there was familiarity there. I'm like, I'm open. I'm available to talk. This goes along with the point of getting clear on what I need and desire. After my relationship with Max ended, I told myself that I wasn't going to make myself available to date monogamously. Actually, I wasn't going to make myself available to date because I knew I needed to spend time by myself. I also needed to spend time healing some trauma that has been a connecting force between some of the decisions that I've made, as well as working on my business, and figuring that out. Like I mentioned in another video, I'm in a transitional period right now, and I knew that me being open to getting into another relationship would have been a pure distraction, especially because I just ended my relationship with Max and I didn't feel good. I felt good to be out of the relationship. I felt like, oh, okay, I feel relieved. Because I knew that he wasn't my guy, but I wanted him to be my guy. And that alone gave me pause after our relationship ended to talk with Dr. P about, to be like, okay, again, what's going on? Why? Help me figure this out. To which she's been able to help me figure out. I've been trying to come up with like a different phrase, so I'm not going to say the phrase that I've been saying, but trying to be the person that comes in on the horse that saves everyone can no longer be my motto for dating. It's done. Throwing it out. Boom. Trash. Dropped it. Trash. Being that I knew that I wasn't available to be in a committed relationship again, I did say, all in my head, I did say, oh, I'm available for conversation. Because I also didn't want to be like, I'm not available, and then God like tries to send me somebody and I'm like, oh, I said I was not available, you know. Like, I'm not trying to block blessings. So I thought that I was being clever by saying like, oh, I'm not available to date, but I'm available for conversation. So now here comes this guy who I was familiar with, and now he's like, we spoke, and he was actually kind of on the same page that I was on. He had just gotten out of a relationship and was like, I need to get my mind right. So like, let's just be friends. It was one of those like loosey-goosey, let's be friends / this could be something more, but like, this is all that I can give. There was. And because I was in a very similar situation, I was like, okay, cool. I'm into being friends with the possibility of this being something else. I'm into this loosey-goosey nonsense. And I say nonsense because I'll continue. And as we kept talking, I started to recognize the feeling that I'd had before that I had just shoved down in other relationships. A feeling of discontent, a feeling of consternation that I was just like, before I've been like, oh, we're good, we good, we good. But this time around, because of therapy, I don't know why I'm whispering that, because I should be yelling it from the rooftops. I became aware of the feeling, and then I also started to notice how my mind was now being distracted by this guy. Let's call him Ralph. I don't know where I'm getting these names from. Ralph. And so while talking to Ralph, there were some things that Ralph was doing that didn't sit well with me. And so I let him know, like, hey, this doesn't work for me. You said this. You didn't do this. That does not work for me. Ralph, the first time, was like, oh, sorry. My bad. Okay. I won't do that. Then Ralph seemed to be like, okay. We seemed to be like back to like tracking again. And then Ralph did the same thing again. And then Ralph did the same thing again. And then the same thing again. And then Ralph was just being Ralph. And I was like, I'm over here fussing by myself, knowing doggone well Ralph and I had a conversation about where we were emotionally. And I also heard Ralph was emotionally unavailable. I was too. But now I'm having expectations of Ralph and being frustrated because he's not available. So what am I doing? This doesn't work for me. I gotta shut it down. So, long story short, I'm gonna say, try to have a conversation with Ralph. I let Ralph know where my boundary was. Ralph pretty much said, F your boundary. Ralph pretty much was like, boundary? I don't give a crap about your boundary, girl. That's pretty much what Ralph said when I tried to have a conversation with him to say, hey, this isn't working. We're not compatible. Ralph gave me all of it. And I'm very thankful to be where I am mentally and even emotionally, so that I can, as Ralph and I are talking, and Ralph is, like I said, just trying to like hop my boundaries. Ralph is just trying to like strong arm me into continuing on with this thing that was disturbing me. And I let Ralph know, hey, this is now a disturbance. I heard that you're emotionally unavailable. And I was okay with that. But now I'm disturbed in my peace. And I'm really working on my peace over here. So now I'm disturbed. And this doesn't work for me anymore. So Ralph continued to give me the whole spiel of, is it spill or spiel? I think it's spiel. Ralph continued to give me all of what he wanted to communicate, not even listening nor caring about what I was communicating. And so I had to cut Ralph off. I don't like to be that person, but like, in my singleness, I'm protecting my peace. I'm choosing me, and I'm protecting my peace and my energy. And Ralph was taking too much of it. And this was not supposed to be that. So, but because I've spent time with myself, because I'm doing the work to develop myself, it was easier for me to, I'm gonna say strong arm them, just like hit them, strong arm them. Just, it's not that serious. And also recognize that I was only physically attracted to Ralph. That's it. If you watch my get to know me video, I talk about that too. Physical attraction is important to me, but it is last on my list. And I recognize I was only physically attracted to Ralph. I told Ralph. Actually told him, not in the last conversation that we had, but in a previous conversation when I was trying to let Ralph know, hey, you're doing this thing that's disturbing me. I told him then, I don't have much for you. Like, I didn't say it like that, but I said, like, I told him I was physically attracted to him, but I didn't have an attraction to him emotionally and spiritually. Those are two very important things to me. My forever love, my boo babe, my honey bun, my schnuckum bunkums, whatever name comes up when I finally meet my person, my forever love, that I want our emotional and spiritual connection to be like freaking, I want it to be like that anchor. I want it to be anchored I want it to be anchored with the spiritual and I want our connection to be anchored in spiritual and emotional attraction. And yes, the cherry on top is the physical, honey. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching this. Got my tongue all out of my mouth. But you know what I mean. That's what I want. And I didn't have that with Ralph. And Ralph, again, blew right past that. Ralph told me I was thinking too hard. Ralph told me I was thinking too much. As I would say to my friends, what you mean I'm thinking too much? I'm letting you know how I'm feeling and you just completely disregard that and tell me I'm thinking too much? Oh no, Ralph, this doesn't work. This is not serving me. So in ending the situation, is what I'm gonna call it, the situation with Ralph, I had to reassess on what I was saying, and that was, I am no longer just available to conversation. I am available for progressive conversation. I'm available to conversation that is in alignment. I'm not just available just to be talking to someone. If you would have caught me pre-Max, and that's where it was. That's where Ralph was. Pre-Max. In between Bob and Max, that's where Ralph was. You called me pre-Max, I was available for just any conversation. Not any, but loosely saying any conversation. Now this side, oh no. This is a new version of me. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Marquise Christina Brown, and honey, I'm not available to anyone and everyone. I almost said sorry at the end of that, but I'm not sorry. Okay. You guys got me playing around over here. Let's get back to it. So the fourth thing, you guys, all right, loves, the fourth thing that I am doing in my singleness is listening to more podcasts, more relational podcasts, more conversations with couples, married couples, as well as men, just so I can gain a better understanding. I didn't grow up with my that's a lot of information. This conversation makes me feel vulnerable because I just don't know what the heck I'm going to share. And obviously this could be edited out, obviously, but I realized, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm sharing this. Okay, we're here now. I realized because I didn't grow up with my dad in the home, it really affected the way I coexisted in relationships. It really affected the way I engaged with men. I had to do more work, which I'm okay with because it's just an is at this point. And I can say that because of therapy again. How many times, like, I feel like I should give you guys like a nickel every time I say therapy. But because of therapy, I'm able to now forgive, look at it as an is, and move forward, making better decisions, as well as identifying resources that can help me come to better understandings. I have found that in listening and watching like shows like Black Love, as well as listening to different male conversations that are shared on YouTube, and married couples talking about their experiences, whether that's online or in person, it helps me put things into perspective. It helps me It helps me put things into better perspective. I've listened to a lot of conversations these days, and the things that I probably would have run from prior to, I now understand to just be a part of either the male experience or the romantic dynamic, romantic relational dynamic. I'm still developing in that category. As I said, these are things that I'm doing. I am sharing, not because I have the answers, but to share. I have found that those conversations very insightful and enlightening to gain a better idea of what I'm looking for, what I'm being patient for. I'll say that. What I'm being patient for. Number 5, the last thing that I am doing in my singleness, that I also do when I am in some kind of relationship with a romantic interest, whether that's monogamous or we're just talking, I pray. I am a big believer, like, God has always been my go-to when I get into some kind of romantic dynamic. Whether I listen or not is a different story. But the first thing that I do, even if it's just we've exchanged numbers and, you know, look at me how you want to, even if we just exchange numbers, I'm already praying. Like I'm riding home or whatever. Like I'm riding home like, Lord, make it clear. Lord, show me. God, show me how this person is supposed to be in my life. Make it clear. Close doors. Shut them so tight that I can't get through, because you know I will find a way. Your girl will find a way. So just praying for clarity. And there, as many times as I've prayed, God shows me every time. And like I said, whether I decide to listen or not is a different thing. When I was asking myself, or saying to myself in my intimate time with Bob, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. All the while praying, Lord, show me, God, show me, God, show me. And God was showing me. Also, my spirit was disturbed. Showing me, like I said, I felt the consternation with Ralph. I felt it with Bob. But I just kept praying like, oh, make it clear. God was probably like, I am making it clear. You don't feel good there. You don't feel comfortable here. You're not welcomed here. There was a time that I was not welcomed. That's a different story. Something else. And again, my ego, my little self. Bless. But you're not welcomed here. Know that. I'm telling you. Listen. So on this side of my singleness, really spending more time with God. Spending more time with God, praying and being open to hear or feel, open to the answer, open. And the more time I spend with myself, the more time I spend with myself, the easier it is for me to identify the things that don't work with me, that I feel internally, that my gut is telling me, that I have previously overlooked. And now in this singleness, not doing that anymore. If you're not someone who believes in God and prayer is not your thing, maybe meditation. I don't particularly, I don't meditate. I pray. I consider that like my meditation. And I always find that when I do, the answer is revealed. It's whether or not I decide to actually acknowledge it is the thing. So this singleness is helping me acknowledge myself and my truths and be able to feel and honor when my spirit is disturbed when I'm trying to be in relationship with someone. Yeah, that's it. Those are things that I'm doing in my singleness. So far, I'm feeling pretty good. I am still going to patiently wait until God sends me the person who I should have been waiting for this whole time, but that's okay. There is no knock to Max, Ralph, or Bob, or anyone else. There's no knock to them because I learned a lot. I'm as painful as some of those relationships were, and it was really mainly Bob was a big one. Bob was a big one. But as painful as that experience was, it led me to be where I am now. And I'm so thankful to be here so that I can feel better about myself. Not blindly pull crap behind me, thinking that I'm got bags and daisies with me. I've got my baggage and my roses. my bags and daisies, and I'm like, hey, it's me. I'm free. No. All right, I'm just goofing with you guys at this point. If there's something that you connected with, if there's something that you connected with, I've been so goofy today. But if there's something that you connect with in this video, please leave it down in the comments. I would love to hear it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to continue to hang out with me, I am grateful to be here and thankful to be able to share some stories with you guys. Also, make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I post a video, because I'm trying to find my groove with it. I knew that YouTube was going to be a lot of work, but it's a lot of work. And I'm grateful to be able to do the work. It's just taking me more time than I thought it was going to take me. So if you don't want to miss an episode, subscribe, as well as hit the bell so you know when I post something and we can stay connected. All right, loves. Until next time, thanks for hanging with me.